Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy. I'm at Well In Montclair, I'm one of the members of Well In Montclair. This is Jessica Berliner. She's here to speak to us as our holistic nutritionist. This is Weight Loss Month. We're talking about all kinds of ways to lose weight, maintain a sustainable diet, to maintain a sustainable diet, and to get all the help and assistance that anyone needs in terms of a team. We are now going to talk about non-medically induced weight loss. That means that you're managing your dietary intake and your caloric intake and looking at the nutrients, your nutrients, macro and micro systems. And Jess is our key here to help you manage that and navigate it. So, Jess, when you look at someone who is just beginning a weight loss journey, regardless of whether it's one that they've done over and over again, I too can say that I've done weight loss journeys over and over again. What are the first things that come to mind when the person sits across from you?
We've all been there. Even myself, I may do this for a living, but it doesn't mean that we don't struggle with it. There's so many factors that play into weight, and we're constantly heard, eat less, move more. And in theory, that does work, right? A calorie deficit works. But there are so many complicating factors. There are hormones, there are genetics, there are food preferences, there's social lives, there's so many things. So, I think one of the biggest things is people set themselves up to fail without knowing it. We follow really restrictive plans, guides, because we go in knowing, oh, I'm doing this for a month. And then you're waiting for that celebration at the end of the month, eating the things that you did before, instead of making true shifts and changing the approach. Doesn't mean giving up necessarily all those foods, but it's about that mindset shift that we're just not sometimes really approaching.
It's creating something that's more sustainable and a lifestyle change versus.
Yeah, and just putting together a plan that actually fits your lifestyle instead of trying to squeeze yourself into a box and trying to make it work. And again, usually people can stick with a diet or a plan for a certain period of time and they will reach their goals, but they will not maintain them. So if you just alter the plan, you alter the guide to actually fit your lifestyle, then you have a much better chance of actually creating sustainable weight loss or body composition changes or any type of real change that you want to make.
Okay. How is it that you can have two people, and this is how can you have two people who are similar and eat the same things, but they have very different outcomes in terms of weight loss?
So if you had two people go into the store and look for makeup, would they wear the same makeup? No. There are skin texture changes, there's genetics, so it's kind of the same thing with food, right? Like your body is going to metabolize things differently than somebody else. And it could be environmental toxicity, it could be stress, it could be genetics, it could be so many different factors. So I think the way that we look at individualized anything, we have to remember that food is the same way. You can't just expect that two people can live exactly the same, even if they grew up in the same household, And so I think we just assume that a plan should work for everybody if it worked for somebody. And that's not necessarily the case.
What happens when you eat too little? The calorie intake is restricted.
It might work, but it may not work for long. Our body has what's called a basal metabolic rate. It is how many calories your body needs to burn at rest just for your brain and your heart to survive. And if you are too below what your body needs for too long, it goes into survival mode. A lot of people have heard the phrase fight or flight, and it's about adrenal function. It's adrenal glands are little glands above our kidneys that make cortisol, which is our main stress hormone. And our body doesn't know the difference between physical and emotional stress and good and bad stress. And so a calorie deficit for too long is perceived as stress, starvation. So your body will start conserving fat if it's left in that place for too long.
Okay. Because we had a discussion about protein in terms of GLP-1s, how do you view proteins on this side of the table for people who are doing just a normalized diet?
Still just as important. Anytime somebody's on a weight loss journey, they're gonna lose muscle. And so preserving muscle is gonna be important. It may not be as much muscle loss with a more natural approach, but you still need to prioritize the nutrients that your body needs to build. But also, I said it before, but this is the phrase that I always kind of like is calorie efficiency. A lot of people use their calories in a way that's a little mindless, and they'll snack to fill the calorie needs, but not what their body actually needs for nourishment. Protein is not just important for muscle, but it gets broken down into amino acids that helps our brain function. It helps our mood, our neurotransmitters, happy, sad chemicals. So a lot of other different enzymatic functions in the body. So I think it's about balance, right? Like we need protein, we need carbohydrates, and we need fats. And each person needs a different amount of them. In America, we tend, a little less now, but in general, historically, we've had a very high carbohydrate diet.
Yeah.
And so protein needs have been what the body barely needs to survive, not what our body needs to thrive.
Okay. When people, because I know that there's so many different ways of managing a diet. There are people who are calorie counters. There are people who are, measuring themselves. There are people who are measuring their foods, and there are people who get on the scale. What do you feel when you're looking at that? How do you determine or discuss how somebody should handle the metrics of? I gave you a wing. This is out of the blue.
No, it's all good.
How do you deal with people in terms of how they're measuring the outcome?
Depends on the person. You have some people who the idea of a scale, even just the thought of it, makes them want to cry. I'm not going to have them weigh themselves. They're going to hide from it, and they're going to be less likely to do the healthful things. So it's really a discussion at first about what people's goals are. And I always, even with weight loss, it can be the primary goal. I try to always move it to a secondary goal. So looking at somebody's lifestyle, okay, oh, your energy sucks? Okay, improving energy is now our primary goal and weight loss is second. Okay, like you can't walk without pain? Okay, reducing pain is gonna be our first goal and weight loss is second. So for somebody, then their metrics might be around looking at, are they seeing improvements in that other goal? Are they sleeping better? Are they functioning better on a daily basis?
Feeling less inflammation.
Yeah. Are they, is their cognition a little better, their focus? And also, do their clothes fit differently? Now, some people do want to count their calories. Some people do want those metrics. And in that case, we will utilize that. I do think it's a really good educational tool. So if people are kind of open to it, a lot of times I'll have them measure even for 3 to 5 days, just so that they get a basis around portions and what that looks like. Because a lot of people really don't have an idea until they weigh or measure something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we have to stick with it to create sustainable weight loss. It could just be used as an educational tool. So really, again, there's so many different ways to go about it. Some people, they'll take photos of their meals. That way we can look at, okay, do you have enough color? Are you actually supporting your antioxidants?
Right.
Are you getting enough variety? So again, there's so many different tools that you don't have to feel like the only option is macro counting. If you hate that, if you love it, it's a great option. If being on the scale helps hold you accountable, then it's a great. If you don't, maybe we're measuring, maybe we're using a tape measure and measuring your arms, or maybe we are just looking at energy levels, or maybe we have a pair of jeans that you try on once every 3 weeks to see how that fits. So everybody has a different goal. Everybody has a different comfort level. And I would say it's always important to find something that pushes people a little out of their comfort zone, but not so much that they feel unsafe with the option or how they can create the sustainability around it.
Or they hide from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not scary, but I can be. Or the idea of me can be.
I don't think you've ever been scary, but
no, but I mean, you don't live with me. But no, the idea of having to hold yourself accountable or admit that you didn't do something or anything can always be scary. So I do try to make it more approachable in that way. Or, again, we find different ways to try to approach it that might even just be more casual.
Yeah. The typical person who comes to you, what do they look like? What do they feel like to you? I mean, for this type of weight loss, what are the profiles?
I would say it's kind of all over the board. It's usually people who have tried a lot of things, have yo-yoed a lot, because look, there is a lot of information out on the internet. I don't blame them. Like, you want to see what you can do first. Yeah. But where they haven't been able to find that sustainability, or there are hormonal concerns that they feel are preventing them from reaching goals, whether it's women or men. So I don't have a good answer for that, but I would say it's a little all over the board. Most people, it's not their first rodeo with weight loss, though.
Yeah. Are there any things that someone should try first? It's an odd question. Because most people, I would say, who come here, they have tried many things first, second, third.
I think people need to be really realistic with themselves first. Are they actually ready to make change, or do they like the idea of it? And that could sound a little harsh, but a lot of times people come in because they want to lose weight, but they're not ready to actually make the change that needs to happen to lose weight, even if it's a small thing. And so I think having a realistic talk about what their time looks like to make changes to their food, what their family dynamic looks like, who's cooking, who's preparing, and honestly, even if they just want to. Some people are stressed out, depressed, upset, and they think if they lose weight, that they're going to automatically feel better about themselves, but they are not in the space to make those changes, and it creates more stress. So I think, again, just reality of what your life looks like and whether you want to make change. We can make it as approachable as possible, but some people, any type of shift is just too much. And so, yeah, I think just that mental discussion.
Good. I think that's a great answer.
Thanks.
I like it. All right. I think that we've covered a lot, and that, for someone who needs some support and help, that Jess, you have been, and like you've walked me through this one. So I think it is an unbelievably helpful handhold that you give, and that is well informed. So she is here at Well in Montclair. If you think that you need some help during the summer months and this is the way you'd like to go, come visit.
I hope to work with you soon.